A Canadian Bulgor story. Hello, my name is Sheila Bello, and I am about to facilitate the telling of a remarkable story. It is a Canadian Bulgor story. It is also another immigrant Canadian business success story. I am at the Shahirian Bulgor Company Inc. in Scarborough, Ontario. This is the factory home of Chirag Bulgor. This gentleman is Mr. Manuel Shahirian, the Bulgor Canada pioneer himself, and owner of the Shahirian Bulgor Company Inc. He is the one who developed and sustained the Bulgor production in Canada for almost 50 years. You will hear Manuel's story in his own words, and you would get a tour of the factory and see samples of different grades of Bulgor that's produced here. Members of his family are also here today. His sisters, Eugenie, Canarig, and Berjui. They're the ones who helped him from the beginning to make his vision into a one-of-its-kind success. His son Vatan is also here. Can you describe your childhood in Syria?
Yes, I was born in Aleppo, Syria, of Armenian parentage and cultural heritage. I grew up like other Armenian children in Syria. As a citizen of Syria, I attended Armenian elementary school and worshipped in the Armenian church till my family left Aleppo for Canada. My father died in 1946. I was just 14 years old at the time. My father's family were intellectuals and my mother's family were business people.
How old were you when you arrived in Canada in 1950?
I was 18 years old. This is a picture of me at age 18 when I arrived in Canada.
What about your early years in Canada? Can you tell us something about this critical time?
A few days after my family and I reached Canadian shore in October 1950, we spent our first Canadian Thanksgivings here in Toronto with my uncle Gregory Kasparian and his family. We stayed at his house temporarily. This is a picture of the backyard of my uncle's house where we stayed. The separation of my mother, her brother, and her sister had started in 1915 when the Armenians were driven out of their ancestral land and forced into the Syrian deserts by the Ottoman Turkish government. The families of both my parents lived through the ordeal of on and off separation until the late 1920s, when my mother, brother Gregory, her sister Miriam, and the rest of the family separated. In 1928, my uncle Gregory Kasparian and Aunt Miriam Kasparian immigrated to Canada to start a new life.
Did you attend any schools in Canada?
Yes. The second week that I arrived in Canada, my uncle enrolled me in a citizenship class where I learned English. From 1952 on, I attended Central Technical School at night for about 4 years. I graduated as an electrical technician. Well, actually, it was a theory, not the actual practical work. And I finished 1957. I took a lighting course, and a few years later, I took an accounting course to help me with my Bulgor business.
What was your first job in Canada?
Within days of our arrival, I started working for my uncle in the Turco-Persian rug renovating company. Sometime in 1951, when I was still employed by my uncle, I went to the Loblaw store on Danforth Avenue near Dawes Road, which was within walking distance from where we lived. The manager asked me if I had a white shirt. I said yes. When he asked me, then he asked me to work the next day with my white shirt. He gave me the Loblaw's necktie and I started work the next day. I worked Friday nights and all day Saturday for 50 cents per hour. Sometime in 1952, I was offered a full-time job with Loblaw's. I accepted and worked full-time until 1958. In 1957, the superintendent of the store operation sent me to different locations where the Loblaw company was opening new stores. I worked with the staff to set up the new shelves in the stores. In 1958, when I quit the company, I was the assistant manager of the store where I worked. It was called Stuff 14 at the time. It was Kingston Road near Midland Avenue.
What is Bulgor?
The Armenian word for Bulgur is tsavar. It's a little hard to pronounce. The word Bulgur is a simple version of the Arabic, and Bulgur was developed as a method of preserved wheat for long periods of time. It was used over a few thousand years ago by the Hittites. You see, they didn't have a way to keep the wheat for a long time because of infestation, heat, and all that. So they developed the process, which was cooking in the sun, cooking and then drying in the sun and keeping it until they were ready to grind and use.
Apart from Armenians and Syrians, who are the primary Bulgur users?
Bulgur was and still is the staple food of the Middle Eastern nations. From ancient times to the present, the primary consumers of Bulgur have been the Arabs, Armenians, Lebanese, Palestinians, Syrians, Turks, and all around Middle East.
How was Shaherian Bulgur born?
When we immigrated to Canada and settled in Toronto in 1950, Bulgur was being imported from a company in Boston, Massachusetts. It was called Ararat Bulgur Company. They used to make the bulgur, but because the consumption was reduced at the time, they start importing from California, and they were packing it and sending it to Toronto. From 1950 to 56, the price of bulgur kept rising up every few months. The idea to produce our own Canadian bulgur was born in 1956. A group of us were visiting Ottawa for the first time on a weekend. I remember that it was a cool evening. Two friends, my sister Eugenie and I, were stretching out legs on the lawn at the Confederation Park when the idea of starting a business came up for discussion. A few weeks after that evening in Ottawa, the issue of starting a business came up again and again during a family dinner in Toronto, and whenever we were together, we were talking about starting this business. I thought Canada was a wheat-producing country, and we had to use our own wheat. My mother offered to prepare a batch of bulgur at home for family use. She had seen how it was produced in her homeland. And I remember back in Syria when my mother used to buy the wheat and boil it, and we used to spread it under the sun. And I used to watch for other kids not to, do some harm to it. And so she cooked some wheat and dried in the sun. And that's how we started very first time.
Your trademark is Shirag. I assume it is an Armenian word that holds significance for you.
Of course it does. Shirag is the most fertile region of Armenia from way back, where wheat was been cultivated for thousands of years and still is today.
Is Shirag Bulgur marketed internationally or just within Canada?
We started with Canada, but I think it's around the world right now.
Have you ever received financial help, such as loans from the government or other sources, to help develop your bulgur business?
I tried. For sure I tried. A few years after I started the business, after it was going concern, I tried to borrow some money for small businesses, but because I had not shown big profit, I was denied to receive any help from government.
Once you had the idea for the product and the process for producing it, how did you manage to produce and market bulgur with such limited financial means?
In the beginning, I didn't have too many outlets in Toronto, so my sister used to deliver to the customers at home whenever it was necessary on the way home from work. And then when I got married, my wife started delivering until it was well established, the Chirac brand. And because of the quality and reasonable price, my market started growing. Of course, the rest of it is history.
Are members of your family, such as your son, involved in the business currently?
There again, I'm very lucky that my son, after finishing school, after taking a couple years in university, he thought that he will be better off to carry on father's business, and he stayed in the business, and he's still in the business. Now, Vartan will take you in the plant and show you the production.
Okay, this is where our process begins. The farmer brings the wheat. We load them into these two storages. Each storage holds approximately 21 tons of wheat. We take it from here to an internal storage which holds approximately 3 tons of wheat. This is our day tank. This capacity of this tank is approximately 3 tons. From here, it goes into our cleaner, which cleans out any impurities that may enter into the wheat. From there, it goes to the cooker, which is the rotating drum in behind this machine. This cooker has been in continuous service since 1935. From the cooker, it goes into our dryer. The dryer, of course, does what it says, it dries the wheat. And at that point, it is bulgur. From the dryer, we put it into the machine over there, which pearls the wheat. What it does is it removes the skin from the wheat. From there, it goes into our grinders, where we grind the wheat down to various sizes. This machine here sorts the dried and ground bulgur at this point into its various sizes, where it goes into a number 3, a number 2, a number 1. You can see the worker weighing a bag, and he's about to seal it. And from this point, it just gets shipped to various wholesalers or customers for final use.
These are my sisters, Eugenie, Kanarik, and Berjui. Perhaps one of them could explain about the dishes you're going to see.
Bulgur comes in 3 sizes, different sizes. This one is the coarse, which we can prepare the food that you can see, the pilaf. This is the medium, which we use for kabe, and it can be variety of shapes. And this one is the fine, which we use to make tabbouleh. Again, it's all can be done in different sizes and in different dishes. It is versatile, and it is tasty.
Is there anything else you would like to add, Eugenie? Perhaps there's a special memory, or some incident or something that Manuel probably didn't mention?
Yes, there is so much, really. This is a 50-year-old business. Manuel started in the garage of a printing company, and for many years he was the only person who went through all the hardship of the work, the finding customers, publicizing, all that. But there is one night which is, the picture is imprinted in my mind. This was on Railside, his factory before this one. The factory was on Railside Boulevard, I believe. He used to work very late at nights. The system was slightly different. The drying was in a silo. So anyway, because it was late that night, I drove my mother, Manuel's wife, my sister-in-law Zivard, and Vartan, who was still quite young, 3 or 4 years old. We went to the factory and we saw that Manuel was on the top of the silo, the dryer silo. And there was also an engineer, Mr. Dow. I don't remember his first name, but I know his name. The funny part was the name was Dow, and he worked for the Dow company, Dow Chemical. He said, we introduced, we are the family. Then he said, he said, I wouldn't like to be in your brother's shoes. And I was startled a little bit. I said, why? He said, Manuel is doing the work of 5 Indians. He was the cooker, the agent, even certain mechanical things. He tried to fix until it was impossible, but anything that was possible, he tried to fix. I suppose his, not training, but education in electrical theory or knowledge was helpful to him to do also that part. May I add now that Manuel has other responsibilities. Vartan fixes the machines and looks after all the problems in the factory. And I'm very glad Vartan has taken this step and he is helping his father.
This Canadian Bulgor story, which started with an idea, has grown into an international operation since its humble home-based beginning. But this story is not over. There's a bright future ahead for this Bulgor business. Vartan will be taking the Shahirian Bulgor Company, Inc. into the future with the same energy and dedication that his father Manuel put into its creation and its development.